Jamal Carter leans back in his chair, exhaling as the warm afternoon breeze drifts through his open window. His home office is his sanctuary, a sleek, modern space where he codes for a living, running his own cybersecurity consultancy. His dual monitors glow with lines of code, the soft hum of his PC blending with the faint chirping of birds outside. Life in this suburban neighborhood should be peaceful. It's why he moved here. A quiet, gated community just outside Atlanta, where houses are big, lawns are manicured, and everyone smiles just enough to seem friendly. But something is off. Lately, his internet has been lagging, and not just a little. A full-on, pull-your-hair-out, buffering circle of death kind of lag. At first, he blamed his provider. Maybe an outage, maybe maintenance. But when he checked his network logs, that's when things got weird. There was an unknown device connected. Not just any device, multiple. Phones, tablets, even a smart TV, all siphoning bandwidth. Someone was leeching off his Wi-Fi. Jamal isn't the paranoid type, but his gut tells him this isn't random. The only logical explanation? A neighbor hacked in. He resets his router, changes his password, and adds extra security layers. Problem solved. Or so he thinks. The next morning, he steps out to grab his mail when he spots her, Karen Holloway, HOA president, queen of passive-aggressive emails and tight-lipped smiles. Her blonde bob is razor-sharp, and her beige athleisure set is as stiff as her posture. She's standing at the end of his driveway, arms crossed, gaze fixed on him like a hawk circling prey. "Good morning, Jamal," she says, voice syrupy sweet, but laced with something sharper. "Having some trouble with your internet?" Jamal's eyes narrow. He didn't tell anyone about that. "Not really," he replies, keeping his tone neutral. "Why do you ask?" Karen's smile doesn't reach her eyes. "Oh, no reason. Just noticed you changing some settings last night. You know, some of us rely on community stability. Sudden changes can be disruptive." His stomach tightens. The way she says it, it's not casual. It's a warning. Jamal forces a smile. "I like my privacy. Nothing wrong with that, right?" Karen chuckles, but there's no warmth. "Of course, as long as you're not breaking any community guidelines." She walks off, her pristine white sneakers crunching against the pavement. Jamal watches her go, his mind racing. How did she know he changed his settings? And more importantly, why does it feel like she's the one who's been stealing his Wi-Fi? A chill runs down his spine. This isn't over. Jamal tries to shake off the strange encounter with Karen, but something about it gnaws at him. How did she know he changed his Wi-Fi settings? Was she just bluffing, or had she actually been monitoring his network? That night, he digs deeper. Pulling up his firewall logs, he notices something alarming. Someone had tried reconnecting to his network after he changed the password multiple times. Not just that, but whoever had used a spoof MAC address, a technique used to bypass security filters. This wasn't just a nosy neighbor accidentally logging in. This was intentional. Jamal tightens his security even more, enabling an intrusion detection system. If they try again, he'll know. The next morning, he wakes up to an HOA email. Subject, reminder, HOA compliance and fair usage policy. It's from Karen. The message is loaded with veiled threats about unauthorized modifications to personal network infrastructures and disruptive tech usage. Jamal frowns. Is she seriously trying to police his Wi-Fi now? It's absurd. But the more he thinks about it, the more he realizes Karen isn't just an overbearing HOA president. She's watching him. And she doesn't like that he's caught on. The next day, things get weirder. Jamal is working from home when his connection suddenly drops. He checks the router. No issues. Then he logs into the admin panel. His settings have been changed. Someone has remotely accessed his network. His pulse pounds. He locks everything down again, but before he can process it, his doorbell rings. Karen stands on his porch, arms folded, that same tight-lipped smile on her face. "Good morning, Jamal," she says sweetly. "Is your internet acting up? I noticed some disruptions." Jamal stares at her. The audacity. "I'm managing just fine," he says, forcing himself to stay calm. Karen tilts her head. "I hope so. You know, our HOA prefers stability. If certain individuals start causing problems, it can affect the whole community." Her emphasis isn't lost on him. Certain individuals. Jamal clenches his jaw. "I'm just minding my business, Karen." Karen smiles wider, but it's not friendly. "Of course you are." She turns to leave, pausing just before stepping off his porch. "Oh, by the way," she adds casually, "we had a little neighborhood watch meeting last night. Some people are concerned about privacy risks. You understand." She doesn't wait for a response. Jamal watches her walk away, his hands curling into fists. This isn't paranoia anymore. Karen isn't just stealing his Wi-Fi. She's trying to control him. And now, she's making it clear, she doesn't like when people like him don't stay in their place. A chill runs down his spine. Something is very, very wrong. Jamal isn't the type to let things slide. He's worked too hard for everything he has, his home, his career, his peace of mind, and he's not about to let Karen take that from him. That night, he sets up advanced monitoring tools on his network. If she tries anything again, he'll have proof. It doesn't take long. By the next morning, his system logs show repeated unauthorized attempts to access his network, traced directly to Karen's house. That's it. He's done playing nice. Jamal marches to Karen's door, fists clench at his sides. He's still trying to keep his cool, but the way she smirks when she opens the door nearly sets him off. "Jamal," she purrs. "What a surprise." "Cut the act," he snaps. "You've been hacking into my Wi-Fi. I have proof." Karen blinks innocently. "Hacking? Oh, dear. That sounds so criminal. Surely you're not accusing me of something like that." Jamal glares. "I have logs showing someone at this address trying to break into my network, and I'm reporting it." Karen lets out a breathy laugh, shaking her head. "Jamal, let's be reasonable. Maybe your equipment is faulty. Or maybe, I don't know, someone else in the neighborhood is responsible. You are new here. You don't really know how things work, do you?" Her voice is syrupy sweet, but Jamal catches a condescension dripping beneath it. "I know enough," he fires back. "And I know you don't get to invade my privacy and harass me just because you feel entitled to control everything around you." Karen sighs, her expression shifting. The fake pleasantries vanish, replaced with something colder. "You're being awfully aggressive," she says, tilting her head. "You people get so worked up over the smallest things." Jamal stiffens. There it is, the veil dropping. Before he can respond, she steps closer, lowering her voice. "Listen, I don't think you understand how this neighborhood works," she says, her smile razor sharp. "We keep things orderly here. Safe. Maybe you should consider being a little more cooperative." Jamal clenches his jaw. "Or what?" Karen leans in. "Or people might start feeling unsafe. And you wouldn't want that, would you?" Jamal slams his door when he gets home, his heart pounding. He knew Karen was bad, but this... She's outright threatening him now. Enough is enough. He reaches out to Mr. Patel, one of the few neighbors who's always been polite to him. If Karen has a history of this kind of behavior, someone has to know. Sure enough, Patel sighs when he hears what's happening. "I was afraid she'd start something with you," Patel admits. She's done it before. Jamal listens, stunned, as Patel describes how Karen has quietly driven out other neighbors she didn't like. Always people of color. Always using HOA rules and underhanded tactics. Complaints about noise that didn't exist. Calls to the city about unauthorized modifications. Petty fines until people just gave up and left. She doesn't like When people she can't control move in, Patel finishes. She thinks this neighborhood belongs to her. Jamal exhales slowly. He knew she was racist. He didn't know she was this dangerous. But now he has proof. The network logs. Patel's testimony. Even the veiled threats she's made to his face. He's not going anywhere. If Karen wants a fight, she's about to get one. Jamal doesn't waste any time. He's had enough of Karen's harassment, enough of her entitlement, and enough of her veiled threats. He's ready to put an end to this once and for all. That evening, as the sun dips below the horizon, casting an amber glow over the neighborhood, he walks toward the HOA meeting at the community center. Karen will be there. He knows she will. And this time he's prepared. The room is already buzzing with chatter when Jamal steps inside. A long table sits at the front, where the HOA board members gather, Karen among them, seated like a queen on her throne. She spots him and smirks, tilted her chin up like she's already won whatever battle he thinks he's about to fight. "Ah, Jamal," she says, loud enough for the room to hear. "So glad you could join us. We were just about to address some complaints. Seems like there's been some unpleasantness in the neighborhood." Jamal folds his arms. "Unpleasantness? You mean your harassment?" Karen lets out a feigned laugh, shaking her head as she turns to the other HOA members. "You see what I mean? Always so hostile. Honestly, I've tried so hard to be welcoming, but some people just don't respect the rules." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. Some nod along with her. Others shift uncomfortably. Karen presses a button on the laptop in front of her, and a projector screen flickers to life. Suddenly, grainy security footage appears. Clips of Jamal outside his house, sometimes just standing on his porch, sometimes taking out the trash. Karen gestures toward the screen dramatically. Neighbors have reported concerns about suspicious activity. Unregistered guests coming and going at odd hours. Loitering. Potentially illegal modifications to his property. Jamal's blood boils. She's trying to paint him as a troublemaker, just like she's done to others before him. Karen clasps her hands together, sighing in mock disappointment. "Jamal, we pride ourselves on having a safe and orderly neighborhood. If you can't respect that, maybe this isn't the right place for you." There it is. The final push. She thinks she's won. Jamal lets the silence hang for a moment. Then he steps forward, calm and measured. "You know," he says, pulling his phone from his pocket, "it's funny you're so concerned about my suspicious activity when I have proof of yours." Karen's smirk falters for just a second. "Excuse me?" Jamal taps his phone. "I installed network monitoring software after I noticed unusual activity on my Wi-Fi." He turns to board members, his voice clear. "Karen here has been illegally accessing my internet, attempting to hack into my network, and I have the logs to prove it." Gasps ripple through the room. Karen's face turns a deep shade of red. Jamal isn't done. "I also spoke to some of our neighbors," he continues, glancing toward Mr. Patel, who gives a small nod. "Turns out, Karen has a long history of targeting people she doesn't like, especially people of color. Falsified complaints, excessive fines, and now cybercrime." Karen scoffs. "This is ridiculous. He's lying." Jamal doesn't flinch. "I'd be careful with that, Karen." He holds up a flash drive. "Because I've already sent all of this to my lawyer and the authorities." Karen's expression finally cracks. She looks to the board, expecting to back her up, but they're frozen, exchanging nervous glances. This is bigger than an HOA dispute now. Jamal steps closer, lowering his voice so only she can hear. "You thought you could push me out. Thought I'd just roll over and let you win." He tilts his head. "Guess you don't know me as well as you think." The tension is suffocating. Karen opens her mouth, but no words come out. Jamal watches as the realization sinks in. She's losing control. And for the first time, she is the one who feels powerless. The room is dead silent. Karen's breath is shallow, her eyes darting wildly as if searching for an escape. But there's nowhere to run. The power she once wielded over this community, the power of manipulation, authority, and entitlement, is slipping through her fingers like sand. Jamal watches a panic spread across her face. She tries to compose herself, straightening her blazer, forcing a dry laugh. "This is absurd," she scoffs, turning to the HOA board. "You're seriously going to believe him over me?" She gestures toward Jamal like he's some untrustworthy stranger, rather than a homeowner who's lived here just as long as she has. But the board isn't nodding along this time. In fact, they look deeply uncomfortable. Some whisper to one another, while others avoid making eye contact with Karen altogether. Jamal stays calm, his voice steady. "Oh, I don't need them to just believe me. I have proof." He pulls up a new file on his phone, then turns the screen to face the audience. With one tap, the projector behind Karen flickers again, this time revealing clear, high-definition security footage. The video shows Karen in the dead of night, crouching by Jamal's house, messing with his Wi-Fi router. Another clip plays, her sneaking onto his porch, glancing around nervously before peering through his window. Gasps erupt from the audience. Karen's face turns ghost white. "Wah, that's not me," she stammers, shaking her head violently. "This has to be fake. Deep fakes. AI. Something." Jamal doesn't let up. He plays another clip, this one from a neighbor's Ring camera. It shows Karen standing outside, phone in hand, muttering angrily to herself as she types something on the screen. Mr. Patel clears his throat. "That was the night she made the false police report against you, wasn't it?" More murmurs. Karen's carefully constructed lies falling apart, piece by piece. "Shut up," she snaps, glaring at Mr. Patel. "You're just taking a side because—" She stops herself too late. The weight of what she almost said, what everyone already knows she wants to say, hangs heavy in the air. Jamal folds his arms. "Because what, Karen?" Her mouth opens and closes, but no words come out. That's when the doors swing open. Two uniformed police officers step inside, led by Sergeant Alvarez, the same officer who responded to Karen's original false complaint against Jamal. But this time, she's not looking at him like a suspect. She's looking at Karen. "Karen Dawson?" Alvarez's voice is firm. Karen stiffens, eyes darting toward the exit. What is this?" The officer doesn't break stride. "We need to have a conversation about multiple violations, including unlawful entry, harassment, and filing a false police report." Karen's body tenses. No, this isn't happening." "It is," Alvarez says flatly. "We've already reviewed the security footage and the digital logs. Your access to Mr. Reynolds' network was unauthorized. You also made a knowingly false police report against him. That's a crime." Karen lets out a sharp, humorless laugh, shaking her head as she backs away. "This is ridiculous. I am the victim here. He is the one who... She falters, realizing she has no ground left to stand on. Sergeant Alvarez doesn't flinch. "Ms. Dawson, you have a right to remain silent." The words hit Karen like a punch to the gut. Her hands tremble. Her face twists in desperation. "No, this isn't right. You don't understand. This is my neighborhood. I was protecting it." But no one is listening anymore. The board members avert their eyes. The neighbors, some of whom had silently tolerated her behavior for years, look at her with expressions ranging from shock to disappointment. No one is coming to her rescue. And then, just as Alvarez moves to cuff her, Karen does the unthinkable. She bolts. She twists around, making a break for the exit, shoving past stunned onlookers. But she doesn't get far. A second officer intercepts her, grabbing her wrist, and within seconds, she's restrained. She lets out a scream, more frustration than fear. "No, you don't get it. You can't do this to me." But they can, and they are. The officers escort her out, her protest turning into incoherent babbling. Jamal follows him outside, standing on the steps of the community center, as Karen is placed into the back of the police car. Her eyes lock onto his. filled with a mix of rage, humiliation, and disbelief. "You did this," she hisses. "You ruined me." Jamal tilts his head, the faintest trace of a smirk on his lips. "No, Karen, you did this to yourself." The door slams shut, and just like that, it's over. The neighborhood is buzzing, people exchanging looks, shaking their heads, muttering amongst themselves. Some are stunned, some are relieved, some are ashamed. Mr. Patel steps beside Jamal, hands in his pockets. "About time," he mutters. Jamal exhales deeply, feeling something he hasn't in a long time. Relief. Karen is gone. Exposed. Powerless. And for the first time in a long time, Jamal finally feels like this neighborhood, the place he's fought so hard to call home, actually belongs to him. The morning after Karen's arrest, the neighborhood is eerily quiet. No passive-aggressive emails flooding the HOA inbox. No suspicious glares over hedges. No entitled voice barking orders at the community meeting. For the first time in years, Jamal's neighborhood actually feels like home. But the world hasn't forgotten Karen Dawson just yet. By noon, her downfall is trending online. The security footage, the false police report, the desperate escape attempt, it's all out there. News outlets pick up the story, labeling her another HOA Karen exposed. Social media erupts, with people dissecting every detail of her past behavior, unearthing complaints from former co-workers and old neighbors. Her employer, a high-profile marketing firm, releases a statement distancing themselves from her unacceptable conduct. Within hours, Karen's LinkedIn vanishes. By evening, it's confirmed she's been fired. And the hits keep coming. Her landlord, now facing a PR nightmare, announces he won't be renewing her lease. By the weekend, Karen's house is empty. Movers come and go without ceremony. No farewell gatherings. No goodbyes. Just a woman who once thought she ruled this neighborhood. Slipping away in the back seat of an Uber, head low, sunglasses shielding tear-swollen eyes. Jamal watches from his porch, coffee in hand. He doesn't gloat. He doesn't need to. Justice served itself. A community awakens. At the next HOA meeting, one Karen would have dominated. There's a noticeable shift. People are talking, not just about her, but about what they allowed. "I should have spoken up sooner," Mr. Patel admits, rubbing his temple. "I saw her harassing you, Jamal. I saw the little things, the way she treated you differently. I told myself it wasn't my business, but," he sighs, "it was my business, and I did nothing." Other neighbors murmur in agreement. A young couple, new to the area, nods solemnly. "We didn't want to make waves." But keeping quiet just let her get worse. Jamal listens, arms crossed, silent. He doesn't let them off the hook. But he also sees something real in their eyes, something he hasn't seen before. Accountability. It won't erase the years of quiet hostility, the unspoken biases that made his existence in this neighborhood feel like a battle. But it's a start, and maybe that's enough. The weight lifts. Days pass, then weeks. The neighborhood settles into something new, something lighter. For the first time in forever, Jamal enjoys his home without feeling like an intruder in his own space. He hosts a small barbecue in his backyard. Jason, his closest friend in the neighborhood, claps him on the back, grinning. "So, how's it feel, winning against the final boss of Karen's?" Jamal chuckles. "Feels like I can finally breathe." Jason raises his drink. "To that, my man." Laughter rings through the yard. The weight that settled on Jamal's chest for years, one he had learned to carry without question, finally feels gone. Karen is history. And he's finally home.